Yaoyao is our very long-awaited and adorable new 4-star Dendro support unit in Genshin Impact 3.4. Healing us with her adorable looks and even more adorable skills, in this video I'll be going over the best weapons, artifacts, and more for our darling Dendro healer and damage dealer. Yaoyao, while intended to be a healer, can definitely pack quite a punch as well. She's easily able to be run as either a full healer or a hybrid build by dealing passive damage that can be inflicted even while off field. With her elemental skill, Ravenous Sky Cluster, Yaoyao summons her bunny companion that was gifted to her by a certain adeptus, Yugui, that will periodically throw white jade radishes that explode upon contact with an enemy or ally and deal AoE Dendro damage or healing based on Yaoyao's max HP. 2 Yuguis can be on field at once. If a radish does not come into contact with an ally, the player, or an enemy, it will stay in place and remain active until it's interacted with or upon the end of the skill's duration. Nearby characters have more than 70% HP, Yugui will throw a white jade radish at an opponent. However, if a nearby character has less than 70% HP, then Yugui will throw a white jade radish in the direction of the character with at least HP in order to heal them. If there are no enemies around, Yugui will throw the white jade radishes towards the characters on field, regardless of their HP levels. I do also think it's important to note that Yaoyao's elemental skill does not have a standard hit rule ICD, and instead goes off of a time rule ICD, meaning throwing more radishes does not inherently mean more Dendro application, because internal cooldown is entity specific, which means that when her radishes are thrown at different enemies, they all have different ICD, leading you to more or less override a standard ICD and trigger more elemental reactions than you normally would. Yaoyao's burst shares an ICD with her elemental skill, and it also lowers the ICD to 1.5 seconds, therefore allowing for even more Dendro application and elemental reactions. Given at the behest of Cloud Retainer, Yaoyao will unleash her full potential in her Adeptal Legacy state for 20 seconds, in which she deals Dendro damage to nearby enemies and gains a Dendro resistance buff. In her Adeptal Legacy state, the white jade radishes thrown by Yugui will heal and deal damage according to the circumstance of the combat situation. While in this state, Yaoyao will summon multiple Yugui periodically over time with a maximum of 3 on field at once. However, no Yugui will be summoned if she is off field. The white jade radishes thrown by these Yugui will heal all nearby characters and deal Dendro damage that will be treated as elemental burst damage, not elemental skill damage. While in her Adeptal Legacy state, Yaoyao's movement speed and Dendro damage will also be increased. Moving on to passive talents, Yaoyao's Ascension 1 passive talent is Star Scatter. While Yaoyao is in her Adeptal Legacy state, granted to her by her Elemental Burst, Moonjade Descent, she will summon 1 Yugui while she sprints or jumps. This can be procced every 0.5 seconds. Yaoyao's Ascension 4 passive talent in Others' Shoes will cause characters on field to regain HP every 2 seconds based on 20% of Yaoyao's max HP if they are within the AoE of an exploding white jade radish. In Yaoyao's case, as for prioritizing her talents, I'd say to first prioritize her elemental skill, then her elemental burst, and finally her normal attack. Moving on to constellations, Yaoyao's first constellation is Adeptus Tutelage. When the white jade radishes expelled from Yaoyao's bunny companion Yugui explode, any on-field character within the AoE of said explosion will gain 15% Dendro damage bonus for 8 seconds and restore 15 stamina. The stamina restoration aspect of this constellation can be procced every 5 seconds. Moving on to her second constellation, Innocent, while Yaoyao is in her Adeptal Legacy state, triggered by Moonjade Descent, if her white jade radishes explode and damage enemy, 3 energy points will be restored to Yaoyao and can be procced every 0.8 seconds. Yaoyao's third constellation, Loyal and Kind, increases the level of her elemental skill, Sky Ravenous Cluster, by 3, leading to a maximum of 15. Yaoyao's fourth constellation is Winsome. After Yaoyao casts Ravenous Sky Cluster or her elemental burst, Moonjade Descent, her elemental mastery will increase based on 0.3% of her max HP for 8 seconds, with a maximum of 120 additional elemental mastery. Yaoyao's fifth constellation, Compassionate, increases the level of her elemental burst, Moonjade Descent, by 3, leading to a maximum of 15. Yaoyao's sixth and final constellation is Beneficient. When Yaoyao expels a white jade radish, there's a 50% chance that it will throw out a mega radish that will have a larger AoE and have the following effects after exploding. The first will be it deals Dendro AoE damage based on 75% of Yaoyao's attack, then restore HP for the on-field character based off of 7.5 of Yaoyao's max HP. I also find it important to note that for every Yaoyao that is summoned, they can throw a maximum of 2 mega radishes. Moving on to artifacts, starting with 4-piece sets, Yaoyao's best in slot artifact set is going to be 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith. Alternatively, you can run a 4-piece Deepwood Memory set if you don't already have another Dendro unit on your team using it. While the Dendro damage bonus is helpful, you'd mainly be after the Dendro res decrease for enemies, as it can be triggered both on and off field. If you plan on running a full healer build for Yaoyao, Ocean's Hued Clam would be the way to go. The 2-piece passive supplies a healing bonus, whereas the 4-piece passive allows a bit more damage to be dealt through overflow heal. As for 2-piece sets, any of these combinations would work, so a 2-piece Deepwood, 2-piece Oceans, or a 2-piece Deepwood, 2-piece Maidens, or a 2-piece Deepwood and 2-piece Tenacity would all work just as well. As for artifact stats, the 3 that I would recommend the most would be Energy Recharge, HP %, and Crit Rate. Moving on, Energy Recharge, HP, and Healing bonus would work just as well if you're not using Favonius Lance. Alternatively, you could run her on an HP, and Healing bonus, or you can run her on an Energy Recharge, Dendro Damage Goblet, and Crit Rate, or Crit Damage Circlet. Alternatively, you could run her on a full Elemental Rascalade trio if you plan on running her in a full Bloom team. As for weapons, Yaoyao's best in slot weapon is going to be the Black Tassel if you plan on running her as a full healer or a skill bot, being her only HP % polearm. The passive doesn't really matter so much considering it just affects damage against slimes, but here's hoping we can get another HP polearm soon. Alternatively, you could run the Kitane's Crossbeard or Moon Piercer for the Elemental Mastery main stats if you plan on using Yaoyao in a Dendro reaction team based off of blooms, but her healing wouldn't benefit from the passives at all. These 2 weapons would just increase her skill and burst damage. Favonius Lance, as always, is going to be the general best in slot weapon for any support polearm character due to its high ER main set and passive ability to proc energy after a crit. And lastly, finally moving on to team comps, there are 4 types of teams that I recommend the most for Yaoyao. First would be a Quicken team, in which you can use a Dendro or Electro main DPS in your first slot, like Alhaitham, Tainari, the Dendro Traveler, Keqing, Sino, Raiden. Then you can use an Electro support like Fischl, Yaimiko, Lisa, Raiden if she's built as such, or Beto. You can also use a Dendro support in your third slot like Kale, Nahida, or the Dendro Traveler, and finally Yaoyao in your last slot. Yaoyao will allow you to keep up the Quicken aura for long enough to complete a rotation, especially using her burst when the ICD is shortened to 1.5 seconds. Next would be a Hydro DPS or a Nilo Bloom team, in which you use Yelan, Tartaglia, Ayato in your first slot, Nahida in your second, Nilou in your third for her Hydro Resonance, and Yaoyao in the fourth slot. Yaoyao is actually a pretty good healer for a Nilo Bloom team. With her more or less random targeting with her radishes, she'll allow for more Dendro application than you normally expect. Next would be a Burgeon team, in which you use a Pyro main DPS like Hu Tao, Diluc, Klee, or Yanfei, a Flex slot, which you can use Jean, Venti, or Kazuha for control of explosives. You could also use Nahida and Dendro Traveler for extra Dendro application. Then you'd use Toma for his shield and Yaoyao in the last slot. Next would be a Fridge or Hyper Fridge team, in which you use a Hydro DPS such as Yelan, Tartaglia, or Ayato, a Flex slot like Kazuha, Venti, Sucrose for crowd control, or Fischl and Yaimiko for Hyper Bloom or Hyper Fridge, and a Cryo support like Layla, Rosaria, or Kaya. Finally, Yaoyao would be in your last slot. Anyway, that'll be it for me on this Yaoyao guide. Yaoyao is a flexible healer and Dendro support unit who's very dependable and easy to rely on due to her many talents. Let me know in the comments if you pulled for Yaoyao or if you plan on picking her as your free 4-star unit in the Lantern Rite event this year. If this guide helped at all, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more build guides in the future. You can always change your mind later, but until then, I'll see you again soon.